Welcome back. Day 20 continues. Now I'm on our second proof, complement involutive, a proof from day 12. I'm just going to jump right into the marking up similar parts of the formal proof and informal proof for us to look at and think about. Okay, so I'll start by marking the introductory bits, in yellow. Right, so letting something be given, or like suppose there is a B of type base or whatever. These are the moral equivalents of intros, and these are more or less identical in the formal and informal worlds. Next up, cases. So let's do that in orange. So on the cock side, we have this destruct right here. Let me highlight that a little better. There we go. Now, in the informal side, we say something like we go by cases on B, by case analysis on B. B could have been formed in 4 ways. It's often really nice to give the number of cases someone's about to expect so they sort of know what to look at. And you'll see that, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cases there, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cases here. But in the informal proof, we're careful to say, hey, here's the equalities that we care about in every case. Now, that's similar in a certain sense to the EQN, which is really just cock bookkeeping, like not the most important thing for us. But I think it's also important just in terms of context management, right? In cock, the prover is automatically going to take care of remembering which case you're in for you, whereas here in informal land, it's your reader's responsibility, and the more you can do to help your reader along, the happier they'll be. Okay, now all that remains in this proof, maybe go with a pink here, are some instances of reflexivity. And these correspond to computation. A repetitive proof in cock isn't so repetitive. A repetitive proof on paper is very repetitive. So the first thing that I'll note is that here I used sort of the display math and an array for chained equations. But then here I just used inline math. I wanted to take up less space because, look, the reasoning is identical, but like it's sort of much less interesting, right? It's sort of all kind of the same there. You could reasonably, I think a mathematician would very reasonably say in the cases 2, 3, and 4 here, yeah, it's like the first one, just change the parts that need to change. And that's not wrong. I don't want you to do proofs that look like that right now. Those are great proofs, and like if something is boring, indeed, there's no need to tell people about it. But right now, what I'm also interested in is making sure that you know the score. So I really don't want to see these kinds of abbreviations because I want you to tell me everything. I want to hear sort of all of it. So the only final remarks I really have is that reflexivity is a sort of like, hey, compute it, and you'll see that it's obvious tactic in cock. Now, what counts as obvious to a reader is a really subtle thing. And if there's a single piece of advice I have here is don't assume that anything is obvious. You might say that something is found simply or it's straightforwardly, but don't tell the reader what's supposed to be obvious or clear or anything. Because maybe they agree that it's obvious or clear, but if they don't, they're just going to be annoyed. What you've just done is like insult their intelligence and make them doubt you because, oh, you said it's obvious, but they don't see it. So what do you mean? Here, to be more concrete, I've sort of laid out computation as sort of one substitution or function call at a time, right? You can see that morally there's just a few function calls here, right? So we evaluate this, and then that turns into that, and then we evaluate all of that, and it turns into that. And then we trust the reader to see that, like, oh, that's where we started, right? We didn't belabor that part, but we did go sort of step by step. And I think that kind of step-by-step way of moving is a great way to go. And exactly finding the right middle ground of what to say and not say is a thing that takes practice. For now, if you're unsure, I would counsel you to say too much. And I'll sort of, well, in style grading and stuff like that, remark on like, okay, you can condense this, blah, blah, blah. Occasionally we'll say, hey, you moved too fast somewhere. But moving too fast is, I think, a dangerous thing on 2 levels. 1, it alienates your readers. 2, now we as graders have to wonder, did they know they were moving too fast? Do they see the steps in the middle or not? And that puts us in sort of a tricky situation. So if you're unsure whether a step is obvious or not, write it out, and then we'll just tell you not to do it. hopefully these sort of lineups between the formal and informal proofs are clear enough to you. If you have any questions, I'll chat with you on Zulip. See you in the next video.